Today I'm going to be talking about wearable technology, especially looking at Google Glass. I feel like wearable technology is the next kind of cultural step when it comes to new devices coming out. You can kind of relate it back to the way mobile phones were, the whole mobile technology wave that we were experiencing 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And think about how much being mobile impacted our culture. Relating back to that, I kind of wanted to take a look at what wearable technology will do for us and where it will take us and what kind of impacts it'll have. Google Glass is trying to bring augmented reality into the lives of everyday people. It's essentially an AR glass that carries a microcomputer. The glass comes stocked with a fully functional camera, a microphone for you to interact with Google Glass through voice commands, and also a speaker near one of the side frames for you to listen or hear anything that Google Glass is telling you, or also if you're trying to make voice chats or phone calls with other people. In addition to this is the small little screen on the upper right side of your eye, which displays all the visible information and is really key to the augmented reality as it overlays this information in front of whatever it is you're viewing. So the reason why Google Glass is so talked about is because of the way Google introduced it to the public. They announced it back in around 2011, and in 2013 they created this Explore program which allowed specific individuals the access to beta test Google Glass and by using it in their everyday life. The Explore program, it was open to everyone, but it came at the cost of $1,500 for a beta product of Google Glass. And a lot of people jumped aboard this because a lot of people saw the potential that Google Glass had. Very recently, Google announced that it would be ending the Explorer program, officially taking it away from potential users and buyers. They said that they would take this iteration and go back to the lab and keep working on it to keep getting it to the point where they could release it where they're happy with. A lot of people say this announcement is reason enough that Google Glass is a failed project, but when Google started the Explorer program, they started it with a product that wasn't finished. And the purpose was to get the word out, to get their product out, get the idea and buzz going around Google Glass, especially like the wearable technology and AR technology. And that's what they did. They used an incomplete product to test with real people in real situations, and because of that, it sparked a real need for analysis, especially from a cultural standpoint. It really opened up the ways on which this type of technology could and will impact the people who are using it. Google Glass really does have a place, especially in the educational system, as it really would help improve a lot of educational practices, as well as being a really helpful tool in the industry sector. So it's interesting to see how this new step going into wearable technology, especially with Google Glass, where the potential release of those types of products will take us and how those will affect our consumer culture. So in terms of a more critical perspective of Google Glass, we can relate it back to what Marshall McLuhan said in his Medium is message, asking questions of in what ways does Google Glass act as an extension of, or what does it extend in terms of us. We also need to ask, what will Google Glass eventually replace, and what is the message that Google Glass is trying to give? Like, what are we trying to get out of Google Glass? In terms of what it extends, Google Glass definitely extends our mind and our senses, especially with our vision, since it's trying to introduce augmented reality into everyday use in everyday life. Some people really see potential use into it and see it as it being non-distracting and sort of out of the way, and people who used it really got used to it. But then there's another camp that see Google Glass as being too distracting and taking too much away from our everyday life. It's easy to agree with people like that because, once again, looking back at the way mobile phones work, when they became really accessible, really mainstream, along came with it a sort of distracting change in our culture. The reason I say that, and you can see it everywhere you go, everyone's always distracted with their mobile phone. They're either reading text, browsing the internet, browsing the web, playing games, listening to music, texting, and it almost looks as if they're sort of isolated and disconnected from their real world environment. So comparing that with Google Glass and how it's trying to bring this sort of digital environment toward the real environment, a lot of people seem to say or agree that doing so will cause too much distractions, and trying to merge the two will actually end up having a negative effect. It's hard to really say what Google Glass might replace, but looking at it in terms of what Marshall McLuhan said, it does have the capability to replace the need for mobile phones. At the current stage it is right now, it more so acts as a companion to the phone or an extension. That's the funny place where most wearable technology is right now, because looking at wearables in general, they all seem to just extend the use of our phone in terms of being linked towards Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. They just show whatever we can already do on our phone. In that sense, you can say that wearable technology or even Google Glass, instead of being an extension of our mind or our senses, it's really an extension of our mobile phones. In that sense, Google Glass has the potential to do one of two things. It can either be really engaging and really stimulating by being able to augment our experiences and focus our attention on the current tasks we're doing, or the direct flip side to that, that Google Glass has the equal potential to be completely distracting and disengaging for us as it further isolates us from our environments that we're in. So another way we can look at Google Glass is by relating it to all the potential issues and privacy concerns that have been brought up since the Explore program came into light. Looking at the article by Phoenix Felder on the front end and back end, especially more of the surveillance side of that article, Google really has the potential here to extend its practices and the ways that Google has been conducting itself in terms of invasiveness. Google kind of offers a new way to survey us and kind of keep watch and use this information that we see, since it's directly kind of seeing what we're seeing and augmenting our reality based on that. We have to kind of really look at it critically and determine if Glass is worth using on a consumer level basis. And extending on the topic about privacy, Google Glass itself, just as a product, has been talked about a lot in terms of being an intrusive and invasive piece of technology. The reason for that is due to the huge camera that's on the right side of the pair of glasses. This brings up a lot of issues because when you go out into public spaces, people will be unaware if you're recording them or not, recording their conversations, recording their actions, anything they're doing, and that's an invasion of privacy. And we need to really consider, if Google Glass eventually is released on a public and consumer level, is there going to be special laws regarding the use of Google Glass already with the Explorer program. And this is why a lot of people have such a negative viewpoint of Google Glass, is because of people wearing their Google Glass into restaurants or bars, and people were complaining to the managers and owners that they didn't feel comfortable having someone who could record them while they eat or while they're trying to enjoy their meal. When you look at Google Glass, there's really two ways to look at it. You have to outweigh the benefits to society and the cost to society, sort of like the pros and cons. There is an article I read by Stefano Pace. It kind of applies consumer culture theory to Google Glass innovation. He talks about a comparison between augmented reality and digital dualism. Augmented reality refers to the great things that AR can bring to us. These include the memory of experiences, which the video camera makes really easy for us to do. It includes interaction, which with the features of the camera and the microphone and the speakers, it allows us to share and interact with our friends and family when we call them and talk to them, as we can directly feed into what we're seeing and they can view our world in our eyes through Google Glass. The augmented reality also offers us a wide array of information readily available to us, which can be very useful when considering, say, traveling, being in new places, getting general information about anything you could want, really. To contrast this, he talks about digital dualism, which is the sense that the real world is the world around us and we need to separate that from the online world, which is completely different and unrelated, and the real and online are two different ends of the spectrum and they're not yet ready to collide, which is what augmented reality aims to do. Digital dualism poses the risks that augmented reality could have, such as being invasive, and with so many people who could potentially use it, Google Glass is definitely capable of being a really invasive technology. Mobile phones are already, in one way, very invasive pieces of technology. People use the video function and the recorder function all the time to catch things that they otherwise shouldn't be without other people knowing. The whole issue with Google Glass is that people can easily tell or be easily paranoid about you recording them. It mentions also that this junction between human and machine, which really focuses on the fact that humans and machines aren't yet at the point where they can be combined. This refers to a lot how we're moving into an area of technology or a digital age where humans are starting to be combined with technology, and this is where wearable technology comes into play, where we still have access to the technology but it's minimal or minimalistic. Lastly, what the digital dualism argues against augmented reality is the fact that wearable technology, unlike other forms of technology or other computer devices like a laptop or a phone, wearable technology, with the keyword being wearable, relies on being fashionable, especially on a consumer level. If people feel as if it looks a certain way, such as it being too nerdy, then there's no way for it to work out and give us the benefits of augmented reality. So with that being said, as much as Google focuses on its idea of innovation and being driven by innovation, ultimately it comes down to what the consumers want. Consumers and culture, everything, all of us, we are the ones who will dictate the use and the purpose and dictate the use of the innovation that is Google Glass. We'll come up with the use for it, we'll come up with the impacts for it. We determine its success or not. Basically, consumers create the meaning of the product. I feel like it's really important for us to be really critical of these types of technologies because they offer so much, but they also introduce a lot of problems and issues that we really need to look at and be prepared for when these technologies do release. Mobile phones, smartphones, they really created their own culture. They shape our culture to revolve around smartphone, and the reason it did that is because we place so much importance on our smartphones. Wearable technology has that same potential in it, in that it can really dictate us. It has the ability for us to put a lot of importance behind it.